If you are over 60 and still train the same way you did when you were 20, you are making a mistake that could cost you dearly. Your body no longer responds the same way, because over the years the cartilage covering your joints loses thickness and elasticity, reducing its ability to absorb impact. In addition, collagen production decreases, which affects tendons and ligaments, making them less flexible and more prone to microtears. Your joints have endured thousands, even millions, of repetitive movements throughout your life, walking, lifting weights, training, and this continuous use generates cumulative micro-injuries that, although not always felt immediately, gradually weaken the joint structure. Thus, even if strength and energy are still present, certain exercises that you previously tolerated without issue can now cause silent wear, excessive friction, chronic inflammation, and misalignments that, if not corrected, result in persistent pain, osteoarthritis, or serious injuries that could take you out of training for months, or even permanently. That is why, in this video, I am going to reveal the 3 most common exercises that are damaging your joints without you noticing, and most importantly, I will show you safe and effective alternatives that will allow you to keep building strength, maintaining muscle, and improving mobility, all while protecting your joints so you can train for life without fear of injury. Exercise 1. Barbell bench press ***. The barbell bench press is one of the most popular exercises in strength training, but for people over 50 or 60 years old, especially those with a history of shoulder pain, it can become a silent trap for the joints. The main reason is that this movement limits the natural range of motion of the glenohumeral joint, the most mobile joint in the human body, by imposing a fixed pattern where both hands are locked onto a straight bar. This pattern forces the shoulders into a position of external rotation and abduction which, in many people with stiffness, early osteoarthritis, or loss of mobility, causes compression in the rotator cuff area. According to biomechanical studies published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, this position increases the risk of subacromial impingement syndrome, where the rotator cuff tendons and the subacromial bursa become irritated due to repeated friction under the acromion. In young people with elastic tissues, this may go unnoticed, but in older adults with natural cartilage wear, constant repetition accelerates inflammation and chronic pain. In addition, the barbell bench press tends to encourage excessive loads, as the bar allows you to lift more weight than dumbbells due to the stability it provides. This is a double-edged sword. The more weight, the greater the compression in the joint capsule and the more stress placed on the rotator cuff tendons, the pectoralis major, and the sternoclavicular joint. After the age of 50 or 60, bone mineral density, cartilage hydration, and connective tissue recovery capacity decrease, meaning the margin for technical error is drastically reduced. Even a slight loss of control during the eccentric phase can cause microtears that, over time, lead to partial supraspinatus tears or chronic tendinopathies. The best alternative to protect your shoulders and maintain balanced muscle development is the incline dumbbell bench press. Unlike the barbell, dumbbells allow a more natural movement adapted to your own biomechanics, since your elbows and wrists are not locked into a single path. This reduces internal friction and helps each joint find its own comfortable range. By working on an incline bench, 30 degrees to 45 degrees, you change the exercise's angle of attack, directing more effort to the upper chest and reducing direct stress on the anterior shoulder capsule. This simple adjustment decreases the risk of impingement and improves activation of the serratus anterior and lower trapezius, key muscles for scapular stability. Additionally, dumbbells require greater stabilizer muscle engagement. This not only improves functional strength, but also helps maintain joint health by activating deep muscle fibers that protect tendons and ligaments. In older adults, activating stabilizers is crucial to preventing muscle imbalances and maintaining good motor control. According to research published in Clinical Biomechanics, exercises that allow a free movement pattern significantly reduce the risk of overuse injuries compared to fixed patterns, especially in pressing movements. Now, if you want an alternative without weights or machines, push-ups are one of the safest, most functional, and most versatile options for strengthening the upper body, especially for people over 50 or 60 years old. By working with your own body weight, you minimize the risk of overloading the joints while effectively stimulating the chest, triceps, and anterior deltoids. This exercise also requires constant core activation, which improves stability and posture. Its great advantage is that it can be easily adapted to each person's level. Wall push-ups are ideal for beginners or those with limited mobility. Incline push-ups on a table, chair, or bench reduce intensity while maintaining correct technique, and knee push-ups decrease upper body load without losing effectiveness. Beyond muscle work, push-ups have enormous functional value, as they replicate a common pushing pattern in daily life, such as pushing a door, getting up from the floor, or moving heavy objects. This improves not only strength but also coordination and the ability to perform everyday tasks more easily and safely. Plus, since they require no equipment, they can be done anywhere, making them a practical tool for maintaining strength and mobility in the long term without compromising joint health. Therefore, if you are over 60 and want to keep training your chest without putting your joints at risk, the most important thing is to prioritize joint health over ego in the amount of weight lifted. The incline dumbbell press is ideal for those who want to continue using external loads with control and safety, while push-ups are perfect for building muscle strength and endurance with low impact and minimal equipment. Both options allow for gradual progression and respect the shoulder's natural biomechanics, avoiding the repetitive compression caused by the bar. Always remember to perform a specific warm-up for the shoulders, maintain flawless technique, and avoid lowering beyond a range that compromises posture or causes pain. Training smart after 50 or 60 does not mean training less, it means training better so you can do it for the rest of your life. Exercise 2. Traditional deadlift ***. The traditional deadlift is an iconic exercise in strength training because it involves a large portion of the posterior chain, glutes, hamstrings, spinal erectors, and trapezius, among others. However, after the age of 60, this movement presents biomechanical challenges and risks that in many cases outweigh its benefits, especially if performed with heavy loads and without flawless technique. The starting position of the traditional deadlift requires a pronounced hip flexion with a slight bend in the knees, which places the lower back under significant tension. This generates a high axial and compressive load on the intervertebral discs, structures that, over the years, tend to lose hydration and elasticity due to the decrease in proteoglycan content in their nucleus pulposus. This natural process, known as disc degeneration, reduces the disc's shock-absorbing capacity and makes them more vulnerable to protrusions or herniations. In addition, muscle fatigue and the progressive loss of proprioception in older adults can make it difficult to maintain a neutral spinal alignment during the lift, exponentially increasing the risk of injury. The vertebral compression in this exercise is also accompanied by a phenomenon called shear force, a force that pushes the vertebrae in opposite directions, especially if the weight drifts even slightly away from the center of gravity. With age, the ligaments and tendons that support the spine lose elasticity due to the reduction in the synthesis of type I and type III collagen, meaning they are less capable of absorbing and distributing these forces without damage. Furthermore, the hip hinge pattern required by the traditional deadlift demands optimal mobility in the hips and ankles, as well as a strong and reactive core. In older adults who have not maintained consistent mobility work, these capacities are often reduced, causing the effort to shift toward the lower back instead of being properly distributed between the glutes and hamstrings. For all these reasons, although the traditional deadlift can still be safe for veteran athletes with perfect technique, for most people over 60 it represents an unnecessary risk that can be avoided by opting for safer, more adapted variations. A highly functional alternative is the dumbbell deadlift, as it reduces the direct axial load on the spine and allows you to keep the weight closer to the body, decreasing the torque acting on the lower back. Additionally, working with dumbbells provides greater freedom of movement in the hands and shoulders, facilitating a more natural back position and improving postural alignment. This exercise not only continues to effectively activate the glutes, hamstrings, and spinal erectors, but also improves balance and stability thanks to the independent control of each arm. The more favorable biomechanics of this variation allow for a greater focus on technical execution, ensuring that the hip hinge pattern is performed correctly. Here, the priority is not to move the maximum weight, but to strengthen the posterior chain safely, which is why it is recommended to work with moderate loads, a repetition range of 8 to 12, and deliberate control in each phase of the movement, especially the eccentric phase. Now, if you want a weight-free or machine-free alternative to this variation, the glute bridge is one of the safest and most effective exercises to strengthen the posterior chain without compromising lower back health, especially in people over 60. Being performed in a supine position, it almost completely eliminates axial compression on the spine, minimizing the risk of vertebral shear injuries. This movement directly activates the glutes and hamstrings, key muscles for pelvic stability, posture, and functional mobility. Strengthening these areas not only improves body aesthetics but also helps maintain an efficient hip extension pattern, essential for daily tasks such as walking, climbing stairs, or getting up from a chair effortlessly. In addition, this exercise has a positive impact on pelvic control and the deep core musculature, including the transverse abdominis and the pelvic floor, which can help prevent issues such as incontinence or loss of stability while walking. To perform it correctly, lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet hip-width apart on the floor. Engage your core, press your heels into the ground, and slowly lift your hips until you form a straight line from your knees to your shoulders. Hold the contraction at the top for 2 to 3 seconds, making sure to squeeze your glutes firmly, and then lower yourself in a controlled manner. This pattern not only strengthens but also teaches you to consciously activate the posterior muscles, something many older adults have lost over the years. As a progression, you can add a resistance band above your knees or a dumbbell on your pelvis, increasing the resistance in a safe and scalable way, which makes the glute bridge an exercise adaptable to any fitness level. Exercise 3. Smith Machine Squat ***. The Smith Machine Squat is one of the most common exercises in gyms, but also one of the most controversial, especially for men over 40 who want to maintain strength and muscle mass without compromising their joints. Its main problem lies in the fixed path of the bar, which forces the knees, hips, and spine to move in a rigid and unnatural pattern. Unlike a free squat, in which the body can adjust its posture dynamically, the Smith machine locks the movement into a single plane. This causes the joints to bear loads at angles that are not always biomechanically safe, increasing the risk of joint stress and lower back compression. Biomechanical studies have shown that the natural alignment of the hip and knee during a free squat allows for a more even distribution of load, whereas the mechanical restriction of the Smith machine concentrates the effort on vulnerable areas such as the patellofemoral joint and the lumbar discs. One of the most frequent consequences of excessive Smith machine squat use is the appearance of anterior knee pain and lower back discomfort, especially in people with a history of injuries or reduced joint mobility. This happens because the linear movement of the bar does not allow the torso to naturally lean forward, forcing a more upright position that increases torque on the knees. In addition, the constant load along the same trajectory reduces the activation of stabilizing muscles, which in the long term can diminish motor control and the ability to react to imbalances. That is why, for those seeking sports longevity and functionality in daily life, it is key to prioritize movement patterns that respect individual anatomy and promote joint stability. As a safe and highly effective alternative, the goblet squat with kettlebells or dumbbells offers a much more natural movement pattern. By holding the weight in front of the chest, it encourages a slight forward torso lean that relieves pressure on the knees and better distributes the load across the posterior chain. In addition, this exercise requires constant core activation to maintain posture, which strengthens the midsection and helps prevent lower back injuries. From a scientific standpoint, this variation generates less axial compression on the spine, since the weight is not placed directly on the trapezius but is held in a front-loaded position, reducing the risk of herniations or impingements. It also allows for a range of motion adapted to individual mobility. You can squat down to the point where you maintain perfect form, without forcing excessive knee or hip flexion. Another equally effective option is the traditional free weight squat, whether with a barbell, dumbbells, or even just body weight. This exercise not only activates the main muscle groups of the legs and glutes but also improves hip, knee, and ankle mobility, essential aspects for long-term joint health. By working without a predetermined path, the body actively engages stabilizing muscles and improves balance, which translates into greater coordination and functional strength. In addition, performing free squats promotes a natural movement pattern similar to everyday actions such as getting up from a chair or bending down to pick something up from the floor, making it a highly transferable exercise to real life. The key is to take care with technique. Keep your body weight on your heels, chest upright, and spine neutral, and avoid going lower than what allows for good spinal and knee alignment. With these alternatives, you not only protect your joints but also ensure balanced and functional muscle development that will serve you well for decades. Adopting smart alternatives in your training after 60 is not a matter of whim, but a strategy to preserve your performance and your quality of life. The first major benefit is long-term joint protection. By replacing exercises that generate excessive compression, impingements, or unnecessary twists, you drastically reduce the risk of chronic injuries such as accelerated osteoarthritis, tendinopathies, or herniated discs. The science of adapted training shows that, with age, tissues lose elasticity and recovery capacity, so each accumulated microinjury takes longer to heal and can turn into a permanent problem. The second benefit is improved mobility and functionality, since the proposed alternatives replicate natural movement patterns, bending down, pushing, lifting, that your body recognizes and executes efficiently. This not only helps you perform better in the gym, but also move more freely in daily life, reducing the risk of falls and improving your independence. And the third benefit, equally vital, is maintaining strength and muscle mass without sacrificing joint health. Recent studies show that strength adaptations in older adults do not depend exclusively on lifting maximum loads, but on applying progressive and well-directed stimuli that respect body mechanics. This way, you can continue gaining power and muscle tone while protecting what matters most, your ability to move without pain. After 60, training does not mean punishing your body, but strengthening it so it can accompany you for many more years. The goal is no longer just to build muscle, but to keep yourself strong, stable, and pain-free, so that each passing decade finds you active and functional. Replacing these three exercises with their smart alternatives is not a surrender, but an investment. It allows you to keep training for life without wearing down your joints or putting your mobility at risk. This way, you ensure that every repetition adds to your well-being, not to silent wear. If you want more adapted, safe routines backed by scientific evidence for people over 50, give this video a like, subscribe now, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos, and share this content with that friend or family member who still trains as if they were 20 years old, but with a body that no longer forgives it. Your future health starts with the decisions you make today. Your body and your health will thank you. See you in the next video.